continue. It's going at a rapid pace. Illegal immigration hurts all Americans. But if we had proper border security, including a very powerful wall, we wouldn't have to work so hard. And it would be a lot safer and a lot better. We are one united movement, one united people, and one United States of America. And we will make America great again.
Good morning to you. It is Tuesday, February 12th, and this is Fox and Friends First, happening right now at 4 a.m. A Fox News alert for you. President Trump rallying in El Paso just as lawmakers reach a possible deal on border security. What it means for the wall as Democrats dig in on a new sticking point. And Beto at the border, the former lawmaker taking a stand against the president in his old district. How the president just fired back. And up in smoke, presidential candidate Kamala Harris setting social media ablaze with her take on legalizing pot. Fox and Friends First starts right now. Morning, you don't want to miss it. I'm Heather Childers. Thank you so much, as always, for starting your day with us. Let's get right to that Fox News alert, though, for you, because we've got a lot of news to cover. An agreement is reached in principle to avoid a second government shutdown as President Trump takes his national security message straight to the southern border.
Walls save lives. My administration has put forward a compromise. It's compassionate, and it's going to solve our problem.
Well, now the clock is ticking for lawmakers to hammer out details of the deal before Friday's deadline. So what does it mean for the wall? What does it mean for ICE detention beds? Griff Jenkins joins us live in Washington with the breaking developments. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather. Agreement in principle, if that sounds delicate, because it is. And the devil, of course, is in the details. But for now, at least they are talking. Top negotiators seem to have reached some common ground that would avert Friday's deadline. Democrat Senator Patrick Leahy had this to say.
There's not a single one of us is going to get every single thing we want, but nobody does. But we're going to get what is best for the United States.
So what is in this? Let's take a look. $1.375 billion for 55 new miles of border wall. The Border Patrol can use any currently deployed design they want, including those steel slats. All of the miles will be in the Rio Grande Valley sector, or the RGV. That's the heaviest trafficked area of the entire southern border. Then there is this, which may be the sticking point today, and that is the Democrats claiming a 17% decrease in ICE detention beds. Now, there's currently funding for just over 49,000 ICE beds. This tentative agreement would curb that funding down much closer to 40,000, but there is wiggle room because there is additional funding elsewhere for DHS authority to use for additional beds should they need to respond to a sudden surge in illegal immigration. And Democrats dropped one proposal that was drawing a lot of scrutiny but may have really moved these talks, Heather, and that is they scuttled a proposal to cap the total number of detainees caught in areas away from the border at 16,500. Now, the other big question is whether or not President Trump will sign this. News reached him quickly in El Paso.
Progress is being made with this committee. Just so you know, we're building the wall anyway. So we probably have some good news, but who knows? Who knows?
Well, we do know it's certainly not the $5.7 billion that the president asked for. So we'll see exactly what the language is in this bill. It looks like it's probably going to be released on Wednesday, possibly late today, but very fluid. But good that they're still talking, Heather.
Yeah, down from $5.7 billion, which was down from the original $25 billion. I want to ask you, though, you were there in the Rio Grande area. This 25 miles of new border wall, is that enough for them?
Well, if you talk to the RGV Border Patrol officials, they'll probably tell you they'll take anything they can get, but there's always need for more because of the proven track record of having some sort of structure. You know, they say they need three things, Heather: infrastructure, technology, and manpower. Mm-hmm. This is just one step forward in getting the big picture tools that they need.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, Griff. Well, as Griff was just telling us, the Democrats plan to limit the number of detention beds is just the latest development in their mission to abolish ICE. Mark Morgan, former Border Patrol chief for the Obama administration, says less beds means more criminals on the streets.
That's a significant step towards really abolishing ICE via the checkbook. And there's actually two elements to their plan. They want to actually reduce overall bed space for ICE and then cap the interior enforcement. So basically, we already know that if you're a child or a family unit, you're going to be allowed in this country. That's catch and release 1.0. This will virtually mean catch and release 2.0. Common sense, right? As bed space goes down, illegal immigration goes up. ICE, Border Patrol turns everybody we apprehend over to ICE. As the bed space goes down, that means they're going to have to release more individuals into the interior United States. That is catch and release 2.0. From a common sense standpoint, that means that people here that are here illegally and have committed an additional crime and or charged of additional crime, ICE will be forced to release them.
Now, according to ICE statistics, 86% of the nearly 110,000 illegal immigrants detained under the Obama administration in 2016 had criminal records. And of the nearly 160,000 illegals detained last year, 66% had confirmed criminal past. Well, Beto O'Rourke taking part in a dueling march and rally against President Trump in El Paso. The Democrat painting a very different picture of safety to more than 1,000 supporters in his former congressional district.
Safe, not because of walls, but in spite of walls. Secure, because we treat one another with dignity and respect.
Well, about a mile away, President Trump mentioned O'Rourke, who lost his U.S. Senate race to Ted Cruz.
A young man who's got very little going for himself, except he's got a great first name. He challenged us.
O'Rourke will decide if he's running for president by the end of the month, but no announcement last night. Well, President Trump slamming Congresswoman Ilhan Omar for her apology after she accused a lobbying group of paying members of Congress to support Israel. The president telling reporters, quote, "I think she should be ashamed of herself. I think it was a terrible statement, and I don't think her apology was adequate." And Doug McElway has the latest reaction on this story out of Washington.
Representative Ilhan Omar's apology came after a flurry of bipartisan criticism. Quote, "We have to always be willing to step back and think through criticism. This is why I unequivocally apologize." It stemmed from her Sunday night tweets that critics say were loaded with stereotypes about Jews and money. Quote, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby." When a follower asked who's paying American politicians to support Israel, Omar responded, AIPAC. The American Israel Public Affairs Committee is frequently accused by opponents of fomenting hatred of Iran. Hours later, the House Democratic leadership called Omar's tweets, quote, "deeply offensive" and demanded she apologize. One Republican critic suggests it's all an evolution of the Democratic Party's embrace of racial identity politics.
When you try to cultivate groups on the basis of race or religion or culture, you're going to run into the conflicts amongst those groups on the basis of religion, culture, and heredity.
But in a letter criticizing Omar, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler also accused her GOP critics of, quote, advancing their agenda by distracting those committed to equality and social justice. And recently, DNC Chairman Tom Perez offered only the mildest of rebukes of Omar.
The Democratic Party, our platform has been very clear about Israel. It's been very clear about dignity for both Israel and the Palestinian people.
After Omar's apology, she added this, and I quote, "At the same time, I reaffirm the problematic role of lobbyists in our politics, whether it be AIPAC, the National Rifle Association, or the fossil fuel industry. It's gone on too long, and we must be willing to address it." End quote. In Washington, Doug McElway, Fox News.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. Let's stick to Washington for a moment. Today, family and friends, they will say goodbye to the longest-serving congressman in history, John Dingell. Now, his funeral is this morning, and it's in his hometown of Dearborn, Michigan. His wife, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, getting emotional as she greeted hundreds of people paying respects in their community. On Thursday, a funeral mass will be held in Washington, D.C., before Dingell is laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery. And the Michigan Democrat died last week at the age of 92. Well, the other big story you do need to know about today, powerful winter storms slamming the U.S. from the northwest to the northeast. Rain now mixing with snow in the Seattle area, causing a slushy mess on the roads. The storm prompting a ground stop at the airport overnight. And in Iowa, a driver losing control on a snowy road, crashing into a police cruiser. No one was injured. And in the Northeast, snow expected to disrupt this morning's commute for millions. New Jersey's under a state of emergency. Upstate New York could see up to 2 feet of snow. We need Janice Dean in here to tell you some more details on that, but she will be coming up later. Well, the time now is about 11 minutes after the top of the hour. President Trump says the wall will save lives as lawmakers reach a deal to pay for border security and prevent another shutdown. Our next guest's son was killed by an illegal immigrant. Why she says the president's message was so refreshing to hear. And watching Netflix could cost you. The plan one state has in the works to tax the streaming service. That and more coming up, so don't go away.
We want to stop criminals from coming in. Walls save lives. Walls save tremendous numbers of lives. Safety is the birthright of every American, which is why we must finish the wall.
Well, the president making his case for a border wall at a packed rally in El Paso, Texas. The border wall committee announcing a deal, potential deal, a deal in principle, I think they're saying, with less than half the money the president wanted for a barrier. So will this be enough to secure the border? Angel mom Sabina Durden has called out Democrats for refusing to fund the wall, and she joins us now live. Thank you so much for joining us so early this morning. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you and good morning, Heather. It's nice being here.
Well, begin, if you can, by sharing a little bit about your son's story. I understand that back in 2012, July 12th, 2012, he was killed by an illegal immigrant who was driving drunk.
Yeah, he was close to the drunk limit, but he was driving without a license. He had 2 previous felonies, 2 DUIs, which he was placed on probation for. And he turned his truck in front of my son. He was riding his motorcycle to work at the 911 Sheriff's Dispatch Center in Riverside, California, and killed him instantly. And he only received a misdemeanor without gross negligence and served only 35 days.
You know, we look at these pictures of your son with his smile. You know, he had such dreams, right? He dreamed of becoming a licensed, he was a licensed pilot, and he wanted to become a deputy?
Yes, he wanted to become a helicopter pilot for the Sheriff's Department. That was his ultimate goal. Yes, ma'am.
You know, I want to go from your story to what Bob Menendez had to say in terms specifically of illegal immigrants with DUIs. Now, listen to this, and I want your take on it.
The president has decided to criminalize everybody who is an undocumented immigrant. If a person has a driving while under the influence violation, he is now making that, saying that that's a criminal.
Now, what do you think he's trying to say? I mean, is he trying to say that driving under the influence, if you're an illegal immigrant, it shouldn't be criminal?
Yeah, I guess he's having a double standard. So Americans get locked up for DUIs and illegal aliens don't. They shouldn't even be here in this country. This kind of excuse for them just draws more here. Why wouldn't they come? If they get excused, if they get leniency from judges like the killer of my son did.
I want to go back now to what the president had to say last night. I know that you were listening to his rally there in El Paso. What are your initial thoughts? Did you hear what you wanted to hear?
Yes, I did. I'm disappointed now about the deal with the money they allowed, but I'm sure he finds a way to build the wall, like he said anyways. He's a brilliant man. And it's so refreshing to see him live and feel the energy of the crowd and people that voted for him, that are excited what he does for our country.
And that was one of the concerns. So it's interesting to hear you say that you're disappointed in the amount of money, if that does end up being true, that he's taking or agreeing to a significantly less amount and only, 55 miles of new border there in the Rio Grande Valley area of Texas. But you still support him and you still believe in him.
I still believe in him, and I still believe he has an ace up his sleeve. I don't think it's over yet.
Okay, I do want to talk about what's happening there in California with you, though, because the governor has now said that he's going to remove National Guard troops from the border. We heard about this last week from New Mexico, the governor there doing the same thing. Also in California, the governor doing this after trying to set aside $25 million for asylum seekers in that state. So what's your reaction to that?
What a slap in the face of Californians. But I'm not surprised. Kevin Trader Newsom is the nephew of Nancy Pelosi. So his stance is much like hers. They place illegals before Americans. And when he calls it $25 million for amnesty seekers, that's just a code word for illegals. That money should go to the epidemic homeless population that's there, people in need.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wrong. And for me, that any politician, the one in New Mexico, Governor Newsom, and other politicians that don't stand with our president on security of this border, they show their true colors, and it's not red, white, and blue.
Yeah. Sabina, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. We appreciate your story, and our prayers with your family. And, you know, the loss of your son was tragic, should not have happened. Thank you.
That's true. Thank you so much.
Well, the time now is about 19 minutes after the top of the hour. Former pot prosecutor Senator Kamala Harris now opening her mind to legalizing marijuana.
I think that it gives a lot of people joy, and we need more joy.
Carly Shimkus here with the reaction that is lighting up social media, as you would imagine. Well, while the president pushed for the border wall and showed some love for law enforcement, he also revealed his love for something else.
There is nothing better than a good old-fashioned German Shepherd. I wouldn't mind having one, honestly, but I don't have any time. How would I look walking a dog on the White House lawn?
Well, it's been done before, I think. Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115 here with more on the cute revelation. It was nice.
Who doesn't like a White House dog? Well, the president was talking about the best way to secure our southern border, and he says that a good old-fashioned wall and Border Patrol dogs are the most effective in his opinion. But, you know, these sort of, you know, off-tangent moments always go viral. Yep, that's right. They're the ones that go viral on social media, and a lot of people were talking about this moment with the German Shepherds last night. Take a look at this. One person saying, "Thank you, Mr. President, for the shout-out for German Shepherds." Mike on Twitter says, "Trump said German Shepherds are the best dog, and that's something we can definitely agree on." So a lot of commentary about the dogs there. And I'm sure he's going to like that image. That was the first picture from the first Twitter user showing his German Shepherd with a Trump Make America Great Again sign.
Nice. So I wonder, what would he name his dog?
Well, we have Bo for President Obama. Barney was George Bush's dog. So if he wants to, you know,
stick
do
with
a
the bee theme,
I'm sure he would have to.
People let us know at home. What do you think he should name his
Buttercup.
dog if he were to get one?
Yeah,
that's
cute.
a good one.
Maybe not for a German Shepherd, though. All right.
So let's talk about Kamala Harris. She wants to legalize marijuana because it gives people joy. Now, this is a change for her.
Yeah, that's right. She wants to legalize it on a federal level, and she also talked about her own personal experience with marijuana. Watch.
Well, let me just make the statement very clear. I believe we need to legalize marijuana.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay.
And I inhale. I did inhale. Listen, I think that it gives a lot of people joy, and we need more joy.
All right, so she also posted about her thoughts on the legalization of marijuana on Twitter, saying, "Let me be clear. It's time we legalize marijuana at the federal level. Marijuana laws are not applied or enforced in the same way for all Americans, many whose lives have been ruined by these regressive policies. We must change the system." Her past as an attorney general and a prosecutor is going to be something that she's going to have to overcome when it comes to potential progressive votes, and you can really see that on social media. Sam says, funny, how many did you imprison as a district attorney and California Attorney General? Another Twitter user saying, hearing her talk about criminal justice reform is pure hypocrisy.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a hurdle for her when she wants to get those far left votes going in 2020.
I think that voters are smart. They can tell whether or not someone is actually being authentic to who they truly are. So they're going to have to decide, was she being authentic before or
is
now?
she being authentic now?
Yeah, which is the real Kamala. Please stand up. Thank you.
Absolutely right. Thanks a lot.
The time now is about 26 minutes after the top of the hour, and ISIS nearly wiped out as a fierce fight rages near the terror group's final foothold in Syria. But our next guest says it doesn't end on the battlefield. Former commander of the USS Cole, Kirk Lippold, joins us now live with what the U.S. and its allies need to do now to finish the job. And a short circuit for the burger-flipping robots taking over jobs, the new plan to punish companies who hire robots instead of humans.
After that famous Klan photo and blackface were discovered on his med school yearbook page, the governor is saying that he will atone for what he has done by reading Ta-Nehisi Coates' essays and doing network television interviews. Fox News' Trace Gallagher has been following the story since the beginning. Trace?
Hi, Tucker. Because Governor Northam has refused to resign, he is now trying to save his political career by embarking on an apology tour. But now the tour itself is generating controversy because on CBS This Morning with Gayle King, Northam said this. Watch.
Well, it has been a difficult week. And if you look at Virginia's history, we're now at the 400-year anniversary. Just 90 miles from here, in 1619, the first indentured servants from Africa landed on our shores in Old Point Comfort, what we call now Fort Monroe. And while
also known as slavery.
Yes.
Yeah, the Virginia Republican Party quickly criticized the governor's comments. Quote, is the governor so tone deaf on racism that he can't even use the word slave? He has no moral authority to lead any healing process. Social media was also quick to pounce. Quote, words like indentured servant is how people try to erase the pain and horrors of slavery. It is how they think it is harmless to wear blackface. Ralph Northam is done. But others defended the governor. Quote, folks, learn your damn history. Northam is correct. First black Africans brought to Virginia in 1619 were indentured servants. Gayle King is wrong. And while historians debate the degree of accuracy, most agree that Northam's statement wasn't totally wrong or offensive. Governor Northam has also acknowledged on CBS that he thought about resigning, but now believes he can take his state to the next level. Watch.
Right now, Virginia needs someone that can heal. There's no better person to do that than a doctor. Virginia also needs someone who is strong, who has empathy, who has courage, and who has a moral compass. And that's why I'm not going anywhere.
But Northam said if the sexual assault allegations against his lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax, are true, Fairfax would have no option but to resign. Tucker.
Trace Gallagher. Appreciate it. Thank you. So imagine you're a successful public figure. At the age of 55, you hit a severe midlife crisis, so severe that you suddenly decide to leave your wife and 4 kids for another woman. Then you get so carried away with your new mistress that you text her pictures of your genitals, and then those pictures wind up in the hands of a tabloid. Whoa, nightmare. What happens next? Do the media attack you as a pathetic old creep, maybe even a harasser? Do they Me Too you? Or do journalists instead rally to your defense? Well, that all depends on how rich you are. Luckily for him, Jeff Bezos is very rich, the richest man in the world, in fact. And when you're as rich as Jeff Bezos is, there is no such thing as bad press coverage. There is only slobbering. Bob Woodward sucked up first. Woodward is the most famous journalist in America. He once took down a president with the unsparing toughness of his reporting. According to Axios, here's what Bob Woodward wrote to Jeff Bezos after Bezos' crotch shots became public. Quote, Jeff, proud of you for stepping forward in such a difficult situation. Very gutsy and definitely right. This period reminds me of 1972 to 1974, perhaps Watergate redux. So many assaults on constitutional government, common sense and privacy. Let's hope we all get it right. Aggressive but careful and fair. Cheers, and best, Bob Woodward. So that's the new Woodward standard. If you criticize Jeff Bezos, you're like Richard Nixon during Watergate, an assaulter of constitutional government. You're un-American, in fact. Max Boot agrees with that. Boot is another of Bezos' employees at the Washington Post, and of course a florid toady. Boot wrote a column defending Bezos' nude selfies. The headline was, "Jeff Bezos stands his ground." Stands his ground, like Joshua Chamberlain at the Battle of Little Round Top. May our grandchildren revere his memory and speak his name. But for pure unctuousness, no one went further than New York Times technology columnist Kara Swisher. Swisher has been sucking up to billionaires since before the guys who run Uber were even born. If flattering the powerful was an Olympic event, Kara Swisher would be Mark Spitz. According to Swisher, Bezos' behavior since he left his wife and kids for his mistress has been, quote, admirable, a, quote, heroic moment from, quote, the most important tech visionary since Steve Jobs. It goes on like this, pornographically, for an entire column. At one point, this is the best, Swisher frets that Jeff Bezos' privacy has been violated by the National Enquirer, which, by the way, is true. But tellingly, she didn't spend a lot of time worrying about whether America's privacy has been violated by Jeff Bezos. And that seemed like a worthwhile question to ask. Glenn Greenwald has been thinking about it a lot recently, and he joins us tonight. So that was the first thing. Let me just say clearly, I totally disapprove of what the National Enquirer did to Jeff Bezos. I do. But it does raise the question, what is Amazon doing to the rest of us?
Yeah, I wish we were a society that left consensual adult sex to the people engaged in them and had no interest in them, and let that be between them and their spouses or whoever is in their personal lives. But that's all the reason why we should value privacy. I spent a lot of years as a journalist defending that value, and one of the companies that poses the greatest threat to it is Amazon. It's a major source of Jeff Bezos' wealth and power. And, you know, we think of Amazon through their branding that it's a place we buy our books from or download our Kindle from. In fact, their main business is working with the security state agencies to build huge apparatuses of the surveillance state that invade our privacy in ways far more severe than what the National Enquirer just did to Jeff Bezos. And that's a part of the story that's so ironic, beyond the fact that Amazon is notorious for abusing its workers, something that all the people that you just named would ordinarily find quite upsetting.
That's so interesting. I don't know enough about this. So will you quickly summarize? A big part of their business is not selling toothpaste, which is what I use it for, but helping the national security state gather information on citizens?
Right. Before he bought the Washington Post, Amazon had a $500 million contract with the CIA to provide cloud services. They are now using artificial intelligence to build a product called Rekognition that's designed to use facial recognition software to identify by the thousands. So wherever you go, you can be identified by software that the government is using, that Amazon is building. They're using security systems around people's perimeters of their houses and then making it available to huge numbers of people so they can see who's coming and leaving your house, who's inside of your house. The list goes on and on of the products that Amazon is building and profiting from way more than books that are direct threats to our privacy that are critical components of the surveillance state.
Really quick, why do I never read that story?
It's because Silicon Valley is more powerful in Washington than Wall Street is. It's because Silicon Valley now controls huge parts of the media, and the last thing people in the media want to do is cover Silicon Valley critically. So the power of Google and Facebook and Amazon is probably one of the most important stories in the world, and also one of the most undercover because of how powerful they are in the media world.
Glenn Greenwald, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Well, a Democratic presidential candidate accused of abusing her staff, a Hollywood actor caught on camera berating his personal driver. All people who preach compassion barking at those beneath them. What's that about? We'll explain. Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar announced her candidacy for president at a rally over the weekend. The media gushed over the prospect of that, of course. One group that seemed a little less excited about a Klobuchar presidency is her former staff. They described Amy Klobuchar as a cruel and terrible boss. Former staffers told reporters that Klobuchar publicly berates employees in group emails and uses epithets to describe them. Some former staffers said Klobuchar forced them to perform bizarre personal duties like washing her dishes or picking up her dry cleaning. That's not in the job description. Klobuchar's reputation for mistreating staff is so widespread that at least 3 prospective campaign managers refused to work for her. When ABC News confronted Klobuchar with these allegations, she essentially admitted it. She said, quote, "I am tough. I push people. That's true." Huh. So let's see. Here you have a person who routinely claims to care far more than you do about other people, and yet the people she's actually in charge of, she mistreats. Sound like anyone you know? It does. Just about every progressive activist you've ever met. They're all that way. They love humanity, but they despise human beings. Robert De Niro's like that. Just last week, he was caught berating his driver outside a courthouse in Manhattan. Watch.
Where are you? Where the are you, man? You're supposed to be right in front when you dropped us. I don't care if they chase you away. You tell me all. What's the matter with you? Where are you? You're not in front. You're not where you dropped us off.
I mean, everybody has a bad day, but let's be honest, that's pretty strange behavior for someone whose entire political philosophy is built on the idea that he's a decent person and you're not. But also, as we noted, it's very common, if not universal, on the activist left. Progressives volunteer less, they give less money to charity, they leave smaller tips, and as we've seen, they tend to yell at the people who work for them. Maybe that's why they're constantly lecturing you about your moral deficiencies. It's projection. We've got a news alert for you. Out of Capitol Hill tonight, the shutdown negotiators say they have an agreement on Capitol Hill that will avoid shutting down the federal government once more. And hopefully, Senator Shelby, I'm just getting this right in my ear as I'm speaking, Senator Shelby of Alabama has said they have an agreement he believes the president will sign. That's all we know at this hour, 8:46 p.m. But of course, we will report the news the second it reaches us. President delivering a speech tonight at the border in El Paso. That's the backdrop in front of which these negotiations are unfolding. We will bring you the latest when we come back. This is a Fox News Alert. You're looking at live pictures from El Paso, Texas, right on the border. The president will take the stage there at any moment. Immigration expected to be a major focus of his speech tonight. In the State of the Union last week, the president suggested there ought to be more legal immigration to this country. That's a shift from his campaign speeches. He said after we need more workers, and immigration is a way to get them. Orrin Cass studies this question. He's a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, author of the book The Once and Future Worker, and a very smart man. He joins us tonight. Does the United States need more guest workers?
No, I don't think we do.
Everyone in Washington thinks we do.
Well, the Chamber of Commerce and lobbyists for corporations think we do because it benefits them if they don't have to find a way to make do with the workers we already have here.
So what are we know we hear a lot about the positive effects of guest workers. What are the negative effects on this country?
Well, the negative effect is that it relieves pressure on the labor market and on employers to figure out a way to build businesses that actually make do with the workers we have here. And it says, you know, if you have an idea for a business and it's one that you'd rather just bring someone else in for, it doesn't even have to be a citizen. We'll bring someone in, you use them, and you send them away, and we're not going to worry about what happens to the workers who actually live here.
So companies used to care about the quality of American schools because that's where their labor force was educated. People care much less about public schools. Do you think that's one of the reasons?
It could be. There's a famous saying from a guy named Max Frisch who studied this in Germany. He said, you know, we wanted workers, but we got people.
Yeah.
And it's just this idea of we're not going to actually think about our economy as being about the people who live here and need to support themselves here. We're just going to think about it as a way to make more stuff cheaper. And that can work out well in the short term, but it can be a real mistake in the long run.
Has it ever worked in a country you're aware of long term well for the country?
There have been times when it's worked. You know, we had a big program in the 50s and 60s that we tried to bring in a lot of Mexican farm workers.
Yeah,
a lot of folks actually trace that back to, in a sense, the start of the legal immigration problem, because we brought folks here, we assumed they'd all leave, and guess what? Some of them thought they'd rather stay here.
Yeah, and the work they did has since been automated.
Some of it has, and there's this idea that, you know, that's work that Americans won't do, but in fact, almost every category of work, farm workers included, most of the people doing that work are Americans. So I think we actually need to put a little bit more pressure on employers to say, you know what, why don't you find a way to make this work with people we have here and invest in making Americans more productive so it's good for business and good for workers.
Yeah, what you said qualifies as radical in Washington, but it seems so non-radical and so obvious to me. Orrin Katz, one of the few people saying that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The president will take the stage in El Paso, Texas, as we said, any minute now. Tonight's rally a few blocks from the U.S.-Mexico border. Michael Anton served in the White House. He's the author of the book After the Flight 93 Election, and he joins us here on the set. Michael Anton, thank you very much for joining us. I have to